What's going on, everybody? C4, welcome back to the channel. I felt like what better way to kick off the weekend? It's kind of a bye week. It is a bye week of football before the Super Bowl. Then now talking about the draft a little bit. Shrine Bowl, the Senior Bowl have been in full form right now. So like draft is a little bit on the brain in this down period before we get into a massive Super Bowl between my beloved Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. So I felt like it was a great time to do a mock draft. This mock draft will have no trades. I feel like we give ourselves a little bit of wiggle room for another mock draft video that does feature trades because there's a lot of speculation around the team that currently holds the first overall pick, the Chicago Bears, and whether or not they're going to stay at pick 1 or a team that is desperate for a quarterback will have, offer a king's ransom to maybe leapfrog the Houston Texans for a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud, whoever they have considered their top quarterback. Now, I've already kind of gone through and did a little bit of like a soft mock, a very, very soft mock. May need to talk to your doctor to get this mock up to where it needs to be. But I definitely could say in terms of like hyping up what you're going to see, big slips for tight end, for running back, for a quarterback. One quarterback in particular, I have free falling a little bit outside of the consensus. And obviously, you know what, to think a little bit outside the box, but I don't like being too much of a football hipster. When I like specific players, I will stick my neck on the line. It's still a little early in the draft process. Like last year, George Pickens was my guy. Last year, I had Sauce Gardner, consensus #1 overall player. Jalen Petrie was my top safety last year. So, like, there's just certain players sometimes I fall in love with and I'll stick with my guns. But also, you got to find that fine line between, like, sticking with your guys that you truly love and not just being a football hipster and trying to be different for the sake of being different. That's something that I always try to be conscientious about for my draft content. With that being said, without further ado, let's get into the mock draft. With the first overall pick, we have the Chicago Bears selecting Jalen Carter, defensive lineman from Georgia. He's going to be franchise defensive tackle. That guy there, bona fide superstar. Obviously is someone that got the last Georgia freak of nature D lineman. Apples and oranges a little bit. A little bit different style of player. Jordan Davis is the big body run stuffer who has some upside to work on the pass rushing skill set, where Jalen Carter is going to be more, and this is not to discredit his run defense, but he's a guy that offers a little bit more upside as an interior pass rusher. And I think if you're the Chicago Bears, between him or Will Anderson, if you were not blown away with any other offers, you can't go wrong with Jalen Carter, Will Anderson. Personally, I might go Will. I mean, we got to see the combines, especially if Will Anderson can solidify himself as an alien. I think if Will Anderson goes in and dominates the combine, could be enough to get you to go him over Jalen Carter. I just kind of look at the Chicago Bears right now, and maybe Jalen Carter offers a little bit more value to their current roster than it is more so a reflection of Jalen Carter being the top player overall on the board, which I think I still need to see a little bit more, but I might have Will Anderson as my #1 overall. Houston at pick 2. They don't have to do anything, even though they botched having the #1 overall pick with their late season win. They get their guy, D'Amico Ryans gets Bryce Young. I think you got to go Bryce Young. It's not outrageous to think that some teams will have CJ Stroud ahead of Bryce Young. There's size concerns with Bryce Young. Is he going to be even 6 feet tall? He's going to be pulling a Kyler Murray where he's going to be drinking a lot of water to inflate his weight at the combine. But like you're most likely getting like a 5'11" on a good day, like a 195-pound quarterback, which there's not a whole lot of success for that kind of size. But the same things were said, for example, for Devontae Smith when he was coming out. Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver, ticked off all the boxes, but so many people were terrified of his frame and not being a lot of comparisons in the NFL. And, I'm not going to say I'm going to take him over Jamar Chase right now, but like it's a lot closer than I think people expected it to be. And, Jamar Chase is a wide receiver 1. You have Devontae Smith, a wide receiver 2, both going over 1,000. Yeah, it's point being, I'm not really buying into the Bryce Young is too small to be a franchise quarterback. He's outstanding. He does all the hard things well, and I think that's a safe pick for the Houston. I think Bryce Young's a safer pick than CJ Stroud. Arizona at pick 3, and I think they're just, again, laughing. Will Anderson, Arizona edge rush is a big-time need for them, and they're getting the best edge rusher in the draft, so that's just an easy fit. Pick 4, the Indianapolis Colts. It is time to stop signing veteran quarterbacks and get your guy. And I'll let them go get CJ Stroud here at Ohio State. I think most Colt fans are accepting they're going to get the second quarterback pick in the draft unless something crazy happens where a team leapfrogs all of them and trades with Chicago for the #1 overall pick. And as much as I am team Bryce Young over CJ Stroud is every bit a first-round caliber quarterback. there is the debate every time we talk about Ohio State quarterbacks of like, is that going to translate to the NFL? But I mean, especially for how he played in the playoffs, CJ Stroud definitely ended his college career on a high note. And I think I think Indy looking pretty good. I mean, either or. Indy's going to be getting their quarterback. I think they'll go CJ Stroud, or if someone surprisingly takes Stroud and Young's on the board, I think Colts are getting a quarterback at 4. Pick 5, we have the Seattle Seahawks. This is my first pick that I'm not in love with. It's kind of a placeholder pick until we see it a little bit more. I'm going to have them go get edge rusher Myles Murphy. I haven't done a lot of homework on the top tier edges. I've kind of been more so finding like my steals, the guys that I really like. I'm going to show off some of them because they're going way higher than obviously some of these numbers you're seeing here. Myles Murphy's an interesting one. He's a guy that like you're gambling on traits, which for me personally, I don't know necessarily, how much value. Like, because I mean, I've had Myles Murphy in some mocks that he's there for Philly at 10, and you can kind of get a go on the traits a little bit, as shown by Travon Walker going first overall last year. Teams will gamble on guys with traits that might have limited production. I feel like Myles Murphy's going to go in that category right now, but until we see the elite level of athleticism from the combine and testing numbers, like if he puts up some big time numbers, you're gonna go, okay, he has the proven athletic testing numbers to go with the traits, to go with the narrative that he has this ridiculously high ceiling. I'm gonna assume for this video he does have those, but he's another guy that could go to the combine, especially if he works out, doesn't perform, maybe underperforms a little bit, and it's going to make you reflect a little bit differently on his draft stock, because right now he is very much a guy that is a work in progress, high ceiling player. But for Seattle, they do need to help out their pass rush there a little bit. I think Myles Murphy, if he goes out and balls it at the combine, which a lot of people are projecting to go, he's going to be a top 10 pick, and I have him going at 5. 6 for the Detroit Lions. I'm going with my favorite corner right now. Actually, this is not. I think he's going to go as the first corner. He's not my favorite corner in the draft, but I really do think Christian, I'm glad that I don't want to say that I was early on it, but Christian, there was Keely Ringo was corner 1. Joey Porter has been consensusly corner 2, and then he had Gonzalez that was in that 2-3 range. He's kind of been my number 1 corner for a minute now, and I think if you're the Detroit Lions, you gotta help that defense. The offense last year kind of figured it out. You have a great offensive line, you have weapons. You're gonna have a healthy Jameson Williams. Jared Goff is kind of good now, I guess, or at least he can be your guy that you can build around. Defensively was just not good enough last year, and I think looking at the board, getting another top-tier corner with Jeff Okudah, who looked solid last year, a little bit of a bounce-back year from him, I think that's the direction the Detroit Lions should go. Pick 7, we have the Vegas Raiders. Originally, I had them going quarterback, but I didn't like that pick whatsoever. I am not a big Will Levis guy. I feel like if you're comparing him to last year's draft class, I don't even know if I'd take him ahead of Kenny Pickett. But I do see first-round traits in Will Levis. He is probably the best release in the class. Very good arm talent. But understanding that last year's draft had quarterback-needy teams, and still a quarterback didn't go to the 20s. And I feel like that's more in range for Will Levis. You could go Anthony Richardson here. I don't know. I'm trying to now match Josh McDaniels. Would Josh McDaniels like an Anthony Richardson type, or would he go with a veteran? I think the Raiders are going to be much like the Bucs, 2 teams that are now quarterback needy I think they're going to go the veteran route. Honestly, I could see Derek Carr going to Tampa Bay for a short-term deal. And I think for Vegas, they opt out a quarterback and they get the top tackle in the draft. They get Paris Johnson out of Ohio State, and then likely, maybe a Jimmy G or something like that. Get a short-term and maybe look more towards the 2024 draft for your quarterback. But let's get, they need a lot of help on a lot of different spots for Vegas. So we'll have them go with the safe pick, a franchise tackle, and you're going to be able to play him on the right-hand side. You'll have Colton Miller on one side, Paris Johnson on the other. Don't know. Let them battle it out see who gets to be the blind side protector. Atlanta at pick 8. Going with a little bit of a surprise pick. I'm having going Lucas Van Ness, edge rusher out of Iowa. I think for that 3-4 defense that they're rocking and rolling with, Van Ness is a little bit more versatile. I'm not buying Tyree Wilson as a top 10 talent in this year's draft class. I am buying the upside of Lucas Van Ness. He's one of the younger players in this year's draft class, can play everywhere on the defensive line. I think that flexibility, that versatility is going to give him an edge. And I think as we get to the combine, as we get through more of the workouts, he's one of those guys out of the edge rushing class. His stock is going to start shooting up, and just kind of getting ahead of the curve here. Atlanta getting Van Ness, versatile pass rusher out of Iowa. Carolina at pick 9. I love the Panthers with Frank Reich to go get Anthony Richardson. I feel like this is becoming almost a placeholder pick nowadays. I feel like most Panther fans want Anthony Richardson. I can tell you right now as a Gator fan, especially you saw like a little bit of Sam Darnold last year. Like you could go Sam Darnold until Anthony Richardson's ready. I don't think you need a redshirt Anthony Richardson for the whole year. I think there's going to come a point where it's like we got to take the safety straps off and throw this kid out there. But like that's, mid-season, somewhere around there. Let him get fully comfortable with the playbook. Have someone like Frank Reich who did wonders, absolute wonders with Carson Wentz. I have no attachment because both Doug Peterson and Frank Reich are gone from Philadelphia. I think stepping back, who was more important for that 2017 Wentz? I think you got to go with Frank Reich in that responsibility for the development. Definitely someone Doug, but like it feels like it's like a 60-40 to Frank Reich. So having a guy that has been proven in this league developing young quarterbacks with potential, hasn't had a whole lot of that in Indianapolis. You had like Sam Ellinger kind of deal. I think Anthony Richardson and Frank Reich is a match made in heaven, especially with the staff that he's building there. Philly is on the clock at pick 10. And we're going to go Will Levitt. Just joking. Interesting one. This is like, honestly, Tyree Wilson. Not a big fan, honestly. I see a guy that's, I don't know. Maybe I need to watch more. Maybe if someone here's a big fan of him, sell me on him. Maybe recommend some games I should go see if I can, I'll probably have to get like, Patreon and get some of that all 22 footage. But, we need edge. Tyree Wilson is there. We have Joey Porter at corner. But for me, I'm going with my favorite corner in this draft from my Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois. Very interested to see how he tests. If he runs like high 4.5s or something like that, yes, it might not age particularly well because corner is a position where there's a logjam at corner. With the corners on the board, Witherspoon, Joey Porter, Cam Smith, you could even probably consider Ringo, who has some rough tape but has a chance of being an S-tier athlete. That like the athletes are going to kind of decide the order that these guys go in. As long as Witherspoon has a good combine, doesn't need a great one. He is my favorite tape out of any corner in this year's draft class. Outstanding tackler, outstanding instincts, dog mentality, would fit Philadelphia like a T. I would love for that to happen. Maybe a little rich at 10, potentially. Like, assuming he goes at 10, that means he'd have probably a great to amazing combine. But I think he should absolutely be one of the targets for Philadelphia, especially at this point where you can't really build through the trenches too much. I think Brian Brzez's interesting, but I don't know if that's a project over a guy that most likely is going to have to come in and replace James Bradberry. I feel like it's unlikely Philly will be able to re-sign James Bradberry. That's why we're kind of prioritizing corner right now. So it's like, all right, build through and we don't really have much on the offensive line. I mean, I guess if... Here's my thing. I'm going to just... Because I don't want to make this an Eagles video, because I will have like an Eagles mock draft eventually on the second channel. Peter Skoronski most likely is going to slide into guard. Outstanding lineman. If Jeff Stoutland gives the okay that this is the guy we need to go get to replace, say, Isaac Seumalo at right guard, who we're going to most likely lose to free agency, I'm never going to criticize any offensive lineman pick for the Eagles again. I criticized Landon Dickerson. That was more so because I wanted Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, who's been very good for the Cleveland Browns at linebacker. It wasn't so much I didn't rate Landon Dickerson. We're just terrified of the injuries. But that was another thing where it's like, trust Jeff Stoutland. Trust Stoutland you to make the right call in the trenches. But for me, I'm going Witherspoon because I'm a big-time fan. We have Tennessee at pick 11, and we're going to have them go on the offensive line, and they're going to get Broderick Jones. Again, I think Skoronski's going to kick inside, so now we're kind of dealing with the pure tackles in this year's class, and I think, most likely looks like, hell, even Taylor Lewan said on his podcast, he's likely going to be gone with the injuries. They're going to be looking for a brand new tackle, and why not get Broderick Jones, who honestly might be there head and shoulders, neck to neck with Paris Johnson. I think Paris Johnson's going to be a little bit better of a athletic testing-wise, but Broderick Jones didn't give up a single sack in college last year. Pretty damn good, especially for the Georgia Bulldogs. Houston is back on the clock at 12. I think this is where we'll start to see some, BPAs. I think Tyree Wilson, top edge rusher available. I think they need to help out their pass rush a little bit there, especially for what D'Amico Ryans is going to start building on that defense. And Tyree Wilson has traits, 6'6", 270, versatile. I want to see, for me, I'm always a little bit concerned about the stiff, non-athletic. I don't think he's going to be an uber athlete edge rusher. So those guys there, like, yeah, you can go in the first round, but like, are you going top 10? And I don't want to. I'm not throwing this comparison out as a true player comp, but I go back to like Derek Barnett. Derek Barnett was a super productive, likely like a safe first round type pick edge rusher, but wasn't a great athlete, had limited bend, and he kind of just was like an okay rotational guy. And I'm not going to say that for Tyree Wilson, but I'm saying I'm getting More vibes that he could be one of those players, like a guy that gets you 6-7 sacks a year, which is solid, but I don't know if he's going to be like a franchise pass rusher. So going at 12 at Houston, a little bit of like a limited risk there as opposed to him going top 10, top 5, 6 overall on the big board on this site. A little too rich for me. Next up, we have the New York Jets. Maybe a surprise pick, but I think they need a safety. Brian Branch is the top safety in this year's draft class. Hell, he could just also be a nickel corner. Just a versatile defensive back that can do a lot of things on the Jets. I don't even know if the Jets are going to have this pick. You know, there's a lot of rumors right now that they could be going for Aaron Rodgers, and if you're going for Aaron Rodgers, this pick is likely gone. But as it stands, I don't think the Jets could go wrong getting a very, very versatile defensive back for their secondary. We have the New England Patriots here at 14. Originally, I was considering like maybe Skoronski. They view him as a tackle. They have got undersized a tackle with Isaiah Wynn. You go Anton Harrison. I think DeJuan Jones, especially with like those freak measurements at the Senior Bowl, he's like the longest wingspan ever. Those are first-round guys. But for me, I'm going with like what I feel like the Patriots should do, and that is grab a playmaker. I'm going Jordan Addison. They need guys. They need weapons that aren't just Nelson Aguilar for Mac Jones. They're starting their development. I think now with Bill O'Brien in there, he's going to say, let's get some freaking weapons here. Maybe they'll do some spending in free agency, but I think Jordan Addison in the draft. I really don't know who my wide receiver one is. I still feel like JSN here, easy Amon-Ra St. Brown comp, might be my favorite wide receiver, but he's going to be a slot guy. And I think like that's where things are, my favorite guy's not always going to go first because he's going to be a niche. Whatever team needs a slot guy is going to prioritize JSN. Anyone needs someone on the outside, I think Addison, I think Quentin Johnson, those in particular, those guys are going to go ahead of guys that they're going to be projected in the pure slot. But I would say still right now, even though I have Jordan Addison going 1, I think he's a first-round caliber wide receiver. It's like I think JSN in the right scheme might be the best rookie, might be the most productive rookie early on. Well, we have Patriots there get a nice weapon on the outside. Green Bay at 15. Originally, I actually kind of went Michael Mayer, but I sent a tweet out, was kind of getting people's vibes, and it seemed like Packer fans were a little upset and annoyed with the Michael Mayer selection there at 15. So we're going to go something a little different, and I'm going to have the Green Bay Packers get a safety. Get Antonio Johnson, 6'3", great athlete. I think DB, back end of the deep secondary there for Green Bay is a spot they need to consider. Darnell Savage hasn't really worked out. Amos is getting up there in age a little bit. So I'll just say originally I did have Michael Mayer there, but offered you guys something a little different. I think Johnson should test kind of well. Long, rangy, versatile hybrid defensive back. We have 16, the Washington Commanders. I'm having them get Joey Porter Jr. in the secondary. I feel like that's just kind of a safe spot. I think like interior offensive line or quarterback. They could go Will Levis. They could. That could be a Will Levis territory. But I just feel like push comes to shove. Maybe they go a veteran route. I think maybe alongside Vegas, Tampa, Washington is another team that could be like in the Derek Carr sweepstakes. So Will Levis could go here, but we'll have them go Joey Porter and improve the back end of that defense. Him, Ben St-Juste, Fuller. It's a good corner. Good secondary. Good safeties there as well. Pittsburgh at 17. We're going to have them. Originally, I actually had them go linebacker, and Steeler fans hate it. Going Trenton Simpson. Maybe you could go Drew Sanders here, maybe a little bit more versatility. But we'll go with the safe pick. We're going to go on the offensive line, and I'm going to draft them. Anton Harrison out of Oklahoma, another player I believe I read somewhere didn't allow a single sack last year for the Pittsburgh for the Oklahoma Sooners, and I think he's going to be able to plug and play there for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Left tackle, there you go. Improve your offensive line. Get Kenny Pickett some ample protection. I think that's pretty much can agree. That's going to be more valuable than an inside linebacker at this stage. Detroit back here at 18, and I'm going to have them get Brian Brzee, the D lineman, the D tackle from Clemson. This could end up being a value pick. I think talent-wise, before his injury 2 years ago, he was top 5, top 10 lock for sure pick. But he had some off-the-field issues that you cannot hold him, anything against him. I think his sister lost a battle with cancer. You can't even imagine what that would do for a player like that, a young player. That's going to be very, very tough. Also had an injury. I believe it was ACL. But I think for Detroit, that is a value, absolute value, and likely I think you could see him starting a rookie season. Tampa Bay at 19. We're going to have the Bucks. Again, they could go Will Levis. But I think for Tampa at this spot, they're going to be more so inclined to go with a veteran quarterback and look towards 2024. So I have them going Cam Smith, corner out of South Carolina. The secondary for Tampa just wasn't where it needed to be. Cam Smith, absolute dog. Definitely, it's a lazy comp, but it reminds me a lot of J.C. Horn coming out of South Carolina. Both, I mean, Horn's probably going to be a little bit more athletic. That's going to reflect where Horn was like pretty much almost a top 10 pick, or did he go top 10? Versus Smith being closer to 20, but both absolutely very Molly aggressive corners. And I think that that is going to be desirable for Tampa Bay. Seattle is back on the clock here at pick 20. And I'd rather them get Peter Skoronski. Feel like either you can go tackle if you want to add some competition there to the guy they got out of Washington State last year, or you kick Skoronski inside a guard, and you get the best guard in the draft class. Improve that offensive line. It's going to go a long way for Seattle to be able to continue to establish a run with Kenneth Walker and protect Geno Smith, who I think they're going to give an honest shot to prove that he could be their guy that takes them to the next level. Chargers at 21. I'm going to get Quentin Johnson, wide receiver from TSU. I didn't love this selection, but understanding that Charger fans are dying for a high upside speed wide receiver that can get separation on the outside. Obviously, complement, you have Mike Williams, who's your jump ball guy. Keenan Allen can go in the slot. He's your route runner. So, I mean, just continuing to go on the offensive side of the ball, I feel like Quentin Johnson, while he does have those Kevin White vibes, he is if you're going for a pure deep threat, he is the guy that you want in this year's draft. And I think that pick's going to make a lot of Charger fans happy. We have the Ravens here. We're going to go to a little bit of run wide receiver. The Ravens just always get the guys that I have like graded higher, and they just fall to their lap. That's where they're going to get in JSN. I think you're going to be able to put him, plug and play him right away at slot wide receiver. You're going to have, obviously, Rashad Bateman gets healthy on the outside. Hopefully, they do right and pay Lamar Jackson the money that he rightfully should be getting. And I think JSN gives them an easy weapon to help that offense and get into some form of rhythm and stop just being this. You know, they're going to get a new. Have they signed a new OC yet? Just have like a watchable offense. Like, there's no way a Lamar Jackson offense should be unwatchable, but that's what the Ravens have been the last 2 seasons. So let's get some more weapons out there. Minnesota at 23. Not in love with this pick, but I'm going to gamble that Keely Ringo's going to have a ridiculous combine. It's going to make you look past his terrible, terrible end of the season. Like, he was the weak link on Georgia. He was the guy that teams were picking on, but he's 6'2", 210 pounds. Probably going to run like a 4.3 and jump like a 40-inch vert. You know, someone's going to draft that. Someone's going to say that we're going to be able to develop him, and I don't necessarily blame them. So we're going to have Ringo go here a little bit early. Maybe a surprise pick at 24. I think Jacksonville, I've seen some fans saying they desperately need a nickel corner. And if that's the case, Clark Phillips is the best nickel in this class. I think he has first-round tape. Getting interested to see how he tests because he's undersized. He's 5'10", 5'11", very much built like a nickel corner, but nickel corners are starters. They're very valuable in today's NFL. And I think if he tests well, if he shows off some good, especially like the agility drills, absolute dog type corner, I think that'd be a great fit for Jackson. I mean, where else could you go if you're Jacksonville? You know, I guess if they're not going to re-sign Evan Ingram, you could go Michael Mayer, could grab a linebacker, I think D-tackle's an interesting one, but I don't know if they need a nose tackle. They have Devon Hamilton there. Tui Pelotu is more of an inside. I just don't think the value's there. So I think for how badly they need a nickel corner, Clark Phillips would be a great get. 25 for the New York Giants. I'm just going to assume that they're going to sign Daniel Jones. They could also go in the Will Levis sweepstakes. But I think for right now for the Giants, I'm going to have them grab. The linebacker is a big-time need. This is an interesting one. It's all about how you view Drew Sanders, because I think he's kind of like one of those hybrid guys where I'm not going to say he's Micah Parsons, but he's like the Micah Parsons role on the defense. I think he can kind of play him a little bit of everywhere. And those sometimes are valuable, but they're also sometimes off-putting because you're like, you know, are you going to run into kind of what the Cardinals run into with Hassan Reddick and Zaven Collins? Why do the Cardinals always draft linebackers they don't know how to use them? Right? Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins, like all those. I feel like Drew Sanders could potentially fall in that. I think Trenton Simpson is going to test very well. I think he's going to be, you know, clearly linebacker one after all the athletic testing is done. Might not be my favorite linebacker in the class. I think I might be a little partial to Jack Campbell out of Iowa. I think absolutely he's much better than the 79th player in the draft. I would have him higher than Teoto and Noah Sewell. But for the time being, we'll throw Trenton Simpson there, get some linebacker help for the Giants. Dallas at 26. Don't hate this pick. Please don't hate this pick. I was kind of talking about, I'm going to have them go Zay Flowers. I feel like Zay Flowers is going to be very much a high riser. Seems like he's absolutely, you know, he's going to run 4.3. And I think if you're Dallas, you can't keep having CeeDee Lamb in the slot. Get Zay Flowers, who's probably going to be the second best slot wide receiver after JSN. I think he's going to definitely start rising up draft boards here a little bit. and put CeeDee Lamb on the outside. I think CeeDee Lamb, for what he brings to that offense, he has to develop as your outside guy. He has to be that Amari Cooper replacement, and you can't keep giving him the easy matchups on the inside. You need that guy on the outside, which would be Lamb, and you put Zay Flowers to be able to work on the inside. Plus, obviously, Michael Gallup can be your other outside wide receiver. Build more weapons. If you are committing the Dak Prescott, you just got to give him more weapons. I feel like with all the wide receivers that are available here, I would consider that. If not, maybe you could go Ika from Baylor, get a big-time run stuffer on that defensive line. But, between Ika or Flowers, that's kind of the direction I think they should go. Buffalo at 27. I'm going to have them get a Florida Gator and Osiris Torrance. I think you got to beef up that offensive line. Help out the run game. Help out Josh Allen. Torrance is likely going to be the second interior offensive lineman off the board. I don't know if I'm 100% sold on him being a first-round player, but I think if Buffalo wants to try to improve the offensive line, given the board that we have left, I think that is their best bet at 27. They could go Bijan Robinson. That'd be an interesting pick. I think you it's just one of those things, like, I think they need to get more pass rush help, but they're going to get Von Miller back, and they've already invested so much on that defensive line. You gotta hope that those guys can continue to develop, right? Guy they got from Miami, Ed Oliver. Ed Oliver was pretty good last year. Took him a little bit. I feel like you can kind of use that for Greg Rousseau and some of those other guys on the defensive line. So let's go up and protect Josh Allen and help the run game out. Cincinnati at pick 28. Especially how things close. You could go offensive line. It's just there's not a lot of value here, I don't think. Maybe DeJuan Jones, after testing, could earn that spot. I just think we'll go BPA and we'll grab Michael Mayer. Get themselves a franchise tight end, another weapon for Joe Burrow to kind of figure it out. But more so another weapon for the passing game. Michael Mayer, probably the most well-rounded tight end in this class. Darnell Washington's like that weird hybrid blocker. Kincaid, outstanding receiver. Musgrave is going to be like your athletic freak. But I kind of think the best of like all those guys will be Michael Mayer. And I think when you're Cincinnati, you're going to be losing someone eventually, like T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd. You're not going to be able to pay everybody. So getting an affordable pass catcher in the first round here, I think, well, you want to think off it. And Michael Mayer also, he's a good run blocker. He's a good blocker. So that also kind of helps protecting Joe Burrow in a way. But I feel like that's kind of a luxury pick. I think 28 for Michael Mayer is really good value. 29, we have New Orleans. I'm going to give them Will Levis. Finally, the drop. Will Levis is a first-round quarterback, but he's a late first-round quarterback for me. Definitely not worth, and there's obviously a couple teams that could have got him. I think you could look at Tampa Bay. I think you could look at Detroit. I think you could look at Washington. I think you could look at, obviously, with whatever happens with Lamar, Baltimore could be in play. The Giants could be in play. But I think his free fall will stop here at New Orleans. They'll be incredibly intrigued to get a developmental prospect to maybe become their franchise guy. The arm talent is there. Definitely for Will Levis. Pick 30, we have the Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm going to have them go get themselves a pass rusher in Nolan Smith, the edge rusher from Georgia. Going to be interested to see where his injury status is going to be around draft time. But very high on him as a pass rusher. I think, honestly, I like him more than... what do we got for the edges? I like Nolan Smith. Honestly, tape, Nolan Smith is probably my third edge right now. I think I liked his tape more than Tyree Wilson and Myles Murphy. But he is coming with the injury, so he might not be able to play right away. I think also Foskey could be an interesting player. I think for Philadelphia here at 31, if this is the board, the most realistic pick, if this is what's left for Philly, we're not trading back, is probably Foskey. Getting another edge rusher there on the defensive line. It's how Howie Roseman likes to build. But you know me, baby. We're finishing the draft. Bijan Robinson, just luxury pick. It's very much similar to when the Chiefs got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And hopefully it works out better. Obviously, Bijan Robinson is a lot better prospect than Clyde Edwards-Helaire. And I feel like, Miles Sanders is probably going to look between $7 and $10 million a year. We've seen a lot out of Kenny G, but can Kenny G be a workhorse? I think we're always going to be a committee. So I feel like if you have just, I don't know, man. It's just luxury pick. Honestly, I'll make this pick because I just kind of want it to happen. But if I'm Philadelphia, they're probably going Foskey if this is the board. And I would have no problem with that. Looks like he's been crushing it at the Senior Bowl. Where else you could go for Philadelphia? Could go safety. I think they re-signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, though. I think they re-signed Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I think, you look at the linebackers. Philly's not drafting a linebacker here. But Sanders and Jack Campbell could be interesting because between Kaiser White and TJ Edwards, not going to be able to bring them both back. We do have Nakobe Dean on the roster. We'll consider that. But Howie Roseman likes to build through the trenches. So, if we go tackle, 31 might be another opportunity for a Jeff Stoutland guy. I wouldn't hate it. Looking at the defensive line, Ika's too similar to Jordan Davis. I really don't think the D tackle spot. So likely, I think Foskey could very well be consideration for Philadelphia here. But for me, just let me have it. Behind our offensive line and with our running offense, adding Bijan Robinson would be like a cheat code. So why not we just go with it and make our offense even more unstoppable? That's the thinking there. But there you go, fellas. That is complete. Actually, there's no 30-second pick. So that is a new mock draft. Let me know what you guys think. Love or hate your pick. Let me know in the comment section below. We'll be back tomorrow, likely with a brand new rebuild. So make sure you stay tuned to your sub boxes for that one. And subscribe if it's your first time stopping by. Smash the like button if you enjoyed. I'll let you guys know when there's an Eagle-specific mock draft dropping on the second channel, More C4. Go check out that one as well. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Till next time, More C4 saying peace out, love ya. Have a good one.